Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled People stories. In this video, a Karen thinks that my porch is public property and then constantly trespasses to use my private jacuzzi without permission. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. Pop quiz. What does it mean when a piece of land connected to a house is surrounded by a privacy fence? I hope most of you agreed that this means that the land and everything on it is the property of the owner of the connected home. I have recently learned that at least one person, which means surely there are a whole bunch of idiots like this out there, because I cannot be that unlucky, believe that this means that anyone who wants can use the property and have the privilege of privacy while they do. There's at least one person who believes that once something is outside of your home, it is public property and ready for them whenever they need it. Of course, the person who owns the connected home is still responsible for keeping it in tip-top shape. Well, if I'm wrong and there's only one person like this out there, then this is one story to add to her legend. Anyway, I have a comfortable backyard. Me and my relatively newlywed husband like to spend time out there sometimes, and we felt like we had the time and space to splurge a little and get us something that would allow us to enjoy lounging in the backyard even more. We installed a jacuzzi tub into our porch and it was absolutely everything we could have dreamed of. With the help of a little protection from the sun, it made the summer days spectacular. Unfortunately, it seems that our enjoyment did not go unnoticed. Our neighbor, we can call her Karen because we all know that's who she is, was someone that until this point I had no real problems with. She was a bit of a nosy neighbor, always asking questions and wondering when me and my husband would put a bun in the oven. These are the kind of obnoxious questions that you expect from older people, and you laugh and say some silly joke and you walk by. They are harmless and charming at times, and you always have material to spontaneously laugh about. The HOA had brought up complaints about her a few times in the time I lived here, but I had not experienced anything worth a formal complaint even though I lived right next to her. I walked out my back door one day off because I wanted to enjoy reading in the jacuzzi. I had my robe on over my swimsuit and my e-reader tucked under my arm, and I turned the corner to walk towards my jacuzzi. Then my jaw and my e-reader fell to the ground. An old woman was lounging in my jacuzzi. She heard my sputtering as the initial shock interrupted my "what the hell?" and turned. She said, "Oh hi OP, I guess you had the day off today. I usually try to stay clear of the jacuzzi when you and your husband might be in it. You never know when the urge to plant a bun in the oven might come along, after all. But I just so love relaxing in here when I can get the chance." She said a couple more sentences before I finally found my voice to cut her off. "What the F are you doing in my jacuzzi? Honey, don't you know that neighbors share? It's important that everything in a neighborhood be public property for a community to be built." Karen, I don't know what delusion led you to believe that this jacuzzi was public property, but it is absolutely not. Sweetie, you should know that there's nothing private about this jacuzzi. It doesn't take the sharpest eye to see it from the street. It's never a secret if you and your hubby are taking a soak out here. You might want to change that though if you want that bun to come along." She winked at me, still completely relaxed. "There's a reason we don't do anything in this pool, Karen. It's not because we are visible from the street. And from my yacht. Get out of my jacuzzi, Karen, and I'll appreciate it if you never peep on me and my husband or mention a damn bun in an oven ever again. There's plenty of room, OP. If you're that tense, then just come and relax. I won't bother you if you want to read your book." I stormed into the house and called my husband at work. He was just as shocked as I was. Both of us tentatively thought about calling the cops, but were uncertain that we should and backed out of the idea. Then I heard a knock on my back door. Karen stood there in her bathing suit at an age where she really should not wear a two-piece. "I understand that you probably have a lot of stress going on, so I want to make sure you get your time in the pool. Also make sure you get that husband to check the filters. I think there's some mess in there keeping it from being completely clean." I tried not to grind my teeth as I watched her walk to the gate and let herself out. I immediately ordered a Ring camera for our back porch and a lock for each of our gates. Like an evil effing fairy godmother, she somehow always ended up in our jacuzzi during the hours that me and my husband were at work. We made some opportunities to come out and tell her that she was not allowed to use the jacuzzi after installing the camera, and unfortunately she kept making rude, nosy and inappropriate comments and only ever left if she thought I needed the alone time because it was my time of the month. Me and my husband had agreed that calling the police would not do anything unless we then escalated the issue and pressed charges. And by the way, Ripe Stars, at this point in the story, would you have called the cops on Karen, or would you have let this slide? I'm curious about your train of thought here. I definitely would have called the cops on her for trespassing, because that is going on for way too long already. We should have done it right then, but we were nervous about how the neighborhood would react to all of this. So we went straight to the neighborhood itself. We started posting the videos with passages explaining how we tried to explain to Karen about it being private property. We showed her bringing friends, and we showed her inappropriate comments about me and my husband's intimate life, and we showed the endless examples of her refusing to leave the jacuzzi on mine or my husband's requests. The neighborhood clamored to attention, with plenty of people having their own examples of Karen's nosiness and obnoxious behavior crossing the lines. It was vindication, and me and my husband both called in at work the next day. We lied in wait and struck when we saw Karen bring her friend and settle down in the jacuzzi. We called the non-emergency line because we knew that she would last most of the day in the jacuzzi, but the police showed up fairly quickly. We ended up having her arrested, and because of her uncomfortable insistence to never have a towel or rope, she was pushed into the cop car in just her two-piece bathing suit. Me and my husband went into the station and filed the police report with our footage as evidence of her trespassing and harassment. My husband was uncertain, but I insisted that we press for a restraining order, and we were granted it. It did not end up mattering too much because the HOA used our court case and evidence as traction to find Karen in violation of the HOA contract too. They ended up asking Karen to leave with the threat of a lien and eviction. I'm not normally a fan of the HOA because plenty of people abuse the power, but with how she was terrorizing the neighborhood, I think this can be considered a win. And yeah, Ripe Stars, it seems like for once the HOA was actually useful. That's not something you see every day, and if you enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because that would help me tremendously. The next one is a combination of petty revenge and malicious compliance. So this starts as malicious compliance and ends with petty revenge. It's a fairly long story, but I think I can keep to the essentials. A place I worked at in 2004 had 3 DBA teams, database admin. The team I had been on since I joined was tight, and on-call rotation was pretty easy. If anyone got paged for a database that you were the primary on, then you had to buy the team drinks. You rarely got paged. So the end of an era. Do you remember Al Bundy doing commercials to save big money on long-distance phone calls? Well, that was us. Cell phones and free long-distance put us under. During the death throes, they had massive layoffs and combined 30 DBAs on 3 teams into one team of 7. I made the cut, however. They refused to offline any systems, so the workload of 30 remained. My old boss did not make the cut either, and my new boss was a toxic butt kisser. I don't even care anymore. His name was Steve, and he was the worst boss ever. He would defend anyone but someone on his team. I believe he legit thought throwing his people under every bus made him a team player. Other departments quickly figured out, blame them, and he will blame his people, so that is what they did. My first on-call rotation on this new combined team was utter hell. The pager went off every 10 to 15 minutes. Messages like, Job 104 completed step 5, Job 110 starting step 12, Job 110 completed step 12. In case you did not know, number 1, these are not things you page out for, and number 2, I have no idea what any of those jobs are, where they are kept, or what to do about them if they fail. No idea. Oh, and on all night long, you cannot ignore them, as you might miss a real message about an actual database problem, so you get 0 sleep, and with the diminished staff, they expect you there the next day. When I started ranting the next day, the folks left from that particular team said it's always been that way. That was nuts, and we are short-staffed, so I set out to fix the problem. I looked at every message that got sent to the DBA pager queue and added the prefixes info or warn to every message, kept it short for the pager, and then I changed the pager daemon to route anything starting with info to email and only route warn to pagers. It worked like a champ. We went from 50 pages a night to maybe 1 per night, and often even none. One day, a team meeting was called and boss Steve was upset that a print job had failed, and our on-call person, aka me, did not respond. Why would I respond to a print job failure? We, the database admins, have nothing to do with that. When you get a page, you respond, period. Why would I get a page that a print job failed? Because we always have. Didn't you get the page? Oh, that? No, I fixed that a while back. DBAs only get paged for DBA stuff now. What? You need to put that back the way it was. Okay, I'm cutting a bunch out here for brevity, and I said no. The people who were actually responsible should get paged, not us. We ended up in a shouting match. He was yelling that he would take me to HR, and I told him that worked both ways, as he was flat out abusing us, not letting us sleep and expecting us in at 8 AM sharp. That slowed him down a little bit, and then he calmly said, "Our department must know everything that happens overnight so we can answer for it in the morning. Make sure we get the pages." Oh, the evil light bulb went off. I smiled and said, "Yes, sir." Ding, ding, ding. Our department, huh? We, huh? Okie dokie then. I reworked the pager daemon so that all pages went to his pager, but left the code that only routed warn to the on-call pager in place. Now we and our department know everything that happens overnight, and yes, I'm so proud of that one. I slept soundly that night. The next morning I kept waiting for him to come over and either tear into me again or admit that it was a horrible night and that he did not grasp how bad it was, but now let's get a better fix in place. I was disappointed. He said nothing to me at all. Did he get all those pages? I double-checked that everything was routed to his pager, and well, it was. He just would not admit that he was wrong. I was really impressed. I thought he was tough but stupid, getting all those pages every night and never saying a word. Well, end of malicious compliance and start of the petty revenge. A few weeks later I was doing an upgrade outage overnight. We were getting to a critical point and needed a decision to roll back or continue and exceed the outage window. I paged him several times, but no answer. We all sleep through pages from time to time, so I rolled back and emailed all concerned. No big, but he never got back to me. That was odd. The next Monday I mentioned it to the team, and several folks said yeah, he does not answer pages after hours anymore. Yeah, he was not so tough it seems. He just started turning his pager off before bed. Still too chicken to admit that he was wrong. A few weeks later I was on call again, and late Sunday night I got paged to come in immediately. To keep it brief, the system that went down was a federally mandated system with severe financial penalties for downtime beyond a limit. We were reaching that limit. It was a huge amount of money. All hands on deck, even the CEO and CIO were there. Developers, sysadmin, network security and DBA with their bosses, with one exception. We were all on laptops in the conference room. This was big. Thank God it was not a DB problem, it turned out to be network. The CIO said that he appreciated us and wanted us all there until it was resolved just in case. No problem, sometimes that is the life we choose. At about 5 AM Monday, after a long night, the CIO says to me, "Hey, I've paged your boss like a dozen times, he's not answering." Oh, glorious day. With a shrug I very casually say, "Oh yeah, Steve, well, he never answers pages at night." He said nothing out loud, but I saw his face cloud up. About 7:30, issues are resolved and we are watching transactions flow across to the feds. I'm watching the DB to make sure the huge backlog is not gumming it up, but I'm just watching as all is well. At about 7:45, old Steve comes strutting in the door, fresh-faced with a full night's sleep. As he walks past the full conference room, he does a double take and stops. When he sees all the heavy hitters and us plebs in the room, his face falls. He knew right then and there that he screwed up. The CIO says, loud and mean, "Where have you been?" And then the CIO and CEO take him out of the room. I have no idea what was said, but I bet it was not pretty. The CIO and CEO come back in about 10 minutes later. They heartily thanked us for all the dedication and then sent us home and said, "Don't come back until tomorrow." Good leaders. I came in the next day and there was no Steve. I never saw him again, and I am glad that I kept that short. And the next one is titled, "Caused food-stealing coworker to puke all over himself." So this is a small business, maximum 10 people were in the office at the same time, so when someone is stealing food from the fridge, people notice it fairly quickly. However, this was the owner's son. Now, the owner was known for nicking food, but he would at least pay you back, sometimes. His son, about 20 at the time, did not and was also a dick about it, and most of the people were getting fed up. So one day, I brought coloring liquid from home, which my wife used to make blue treats, cake, ice cream and so on for our kids. He was always stealing my dairy products and I thought the blue would make it less appealing. Almost forgot about it until a coworker was fuming that someone had eaten almost all of her cottage cheese and that she did not have enough for herself. So I asked her if she was willing to sacrifice what was left and sprinkled a few blue drops in there, went to the culprit and said, "Dude, were you eating this? It's gone bad, you cannot eat this, how did you not notice?" I could hardly finish my sentence as he threw up all over his desk and himself. Violently for all to see, the blue spots in the leftovers I showed him did look rather dramatic. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, how would you deal with a food thief at work? And let me also know if this ever happened to you in real life before. And the next one is titled, HOA forced me to take down my Navy husband's welcome home sign and threatened me with fines. I know that the HOA can piss off a lot of different types of families. I think mine learned a big lesson that when you mess with a military family, you are going to get destroyed. Now, that might sound a little bit harsh, but let me take you back a little to explain exactly what is going on and why I got so angry. My husband is in the Navy and he has been deployed for the last 3 years. I missed him so much and so did our 2 children, so when we heard that he was going to be coming back home in a month, we were extremely excited. We decided that we needed to make him a big sign and put it up in front of our house. Me and the kids all worked to make a welcome home sign for him. Now, I will be the first to admit that with an 8 and 5-year-old helping with the decorating, it was not some magnificent piece of art. However, it was not supposed to be. It was just a personal message from his family of him coming back home. The area we lived had a lot of military families actually, so it was not uncommon to see people coming home and a family getting excited. The only problem was that I already knew from the start that the HOA in my neighborhood was a total pain in the butt to everybody. Just to give a quick example, a bunch of the families being military wanted to show support by flying a flag in their yard. The HOA though came up with some total BS rule about having flags in yards and made them take it down. Eventually it got resolved where a smaller flag was allowed, but it was still a kick in the gut to all of us. Anyway, I looked through their stupid little rules and found out that there was only one rule about having banners and signs in your yard, and that was a size limit. Honestly, I did not agree with the rule, but our sign was below that limit, so there shouldn't have been any problems. I would have had the sign be twice the size though, just to show that I was proud of my husband if it was up to me and I was not living in this stupid HOA neighborhood. Even though we had a month before him coming home, we put up the sign so every day we could look at it and remind ourselves that he was coming home. The kids were so happy and telling all of their friends how their daddy was coming home and that he was in the Navy. I tried to explain to them the best I could without going into the detail of war and other things that are not great to tell kids. So they were basically telling the other kids that their daddy worked as a superhero for the country, keeping it safe. On the sign they even tried to draw him with a little cape. Anyway, after about 2 weeks, the HOA sent me a letter in the mail. Now, this was not just a stuck in my mailbox kind of letter, it was hand-delivered and from their lawyer. They claimed my sign was against their bylaws because it was only allowed to be up for a week maximum. This was not anywhere in the rules and they were threatening to fine me for every day that it was up. If I had to guess, they probably thought the hand-done sign was ugly or something. I don't really care what their reasoning was. All I know is that they got a military wife angry, and one thing you should know about us is that military spouses are not alone. It also turns out that I was not the only military family in the neighborhood that they pissed off that week. Someone had given their life fighting overseas, so the families had put ribbons on their lawn to remember him by. It was the son of this older couple and he was their only child. Everyone felt horrible for them and could not believe when we found out the HOA was threatening them to take down the ribbons or face serious fines. Now, with 2 families under attack by them and a neighborhood that is full of active military and veterans, you can expect that things did not go well for them. We decided to have an entire full-stage rebellion and it was going to start with our lawns. Flags went up along with more welcome home signs for my husband, thank you for your service signs for the veterans, and of course ribbons for the fallen loved ones. The HOA did not know what to do at that point because nobody was going to pay their fines and they did not have the money to sue every single person in the neighborhood. A meeting was called and we showed up in force with no intention to try and even talk to them after what they pulled. They even started out trying to defend themselves while we were telling them they had to step down or face even more anarchy. Now, we were not going to do anything crazy, just basically ignore their stupid rules and do whatever we wanted with our own property. They basically were not given a choice in the end besides stepping down and letting a new group of people take control of the HOA. When that happened, all of the fines were taken away, and now the HOA actually had representation for the fact that about 85% of us were in some way military families. Before, none of the HOA had connections, and that might have been why this was such a problem. My kids were actually so happy when the entire neighborhood was decorated with flags, because in their minds, the entire thing was for their dads coming home. It was honestly so cute, and I could not wait to tell my husband. The funny part was that those original HOA members were still trying to defend that my sign could not have been up for that long. Just because of that though, I think that I might just keep it up for as long as I want to know. I was going to take it down after he got back, but since it bugs those people so much, it would be a shame to do it. Or I might make another sign with my kids about their dad being in the Navy. For anyone that is wondering, when he came home, we were all so happy to see him, and he absolutely loved the sign that we made for him. He also loved that the neighborhood had changed and now really felt like a place where military families were welcome. All in all, it ended well, and the moral of the story is a simple one. Don't mess with the families of those in the military, because we won't take it lying down. We are a group that sticks together and does not let anyone push us around so they can just control things. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.